It's almost Valentine's Day, and while much has been made about the appeal of chocolate, which I don't refute, nothing could possibly be sexier than a pot full of melting cheese, which is why we are making Valentine's Day fondue. It's a classic recipe, and it's classic for a reason. It hits all the high notes. It is ooey gooey melting cheese by the spoonfuls. It has wine and sometimes other liquors or alcohols blended into that, so it feels very adult. We're not talking like, melting any cheese. We're talking about something that Swiss and French people take very seriously, so it's sophisticated. It is a beautifully decorative dish. Like, we are not gonna use a fondue pot this time because I wanna show you that you can make this without tons of additional equipment. But if you have a fondue pot and you set up this incredible display of little tiny flame under a beautiful pot and invite people to dip their various accoutrements. We are gonna do baguette, we're gonna do some fennel, we'll do some apples, some dried figs. You can do like any assortment of crunchy vegetables, delicious carbs, some sweet things that get dipped into cheese sauce. It's phenomenal, it's a party. And there's really no wrong way to enjoy. I am gonna tell you something, which is we are going to make, in some ways, a very traditional recipe, and in some ways give it our own little doctored flavor spin. So don't come for me if you're like an enthusiast for the authentic version. Make the authentic version. I love and approve. But we're gonna just change it up a little, just like a few tiny little things to stop. Okay, the most important thing to think about is ratios with melting cheese and Valentine's Day romance math. For every cup of wine, you're gonna wanna use about 1.5 pounds of grated cheese. And that is just to guarantee the most beautiful suspension of alcohol in creamy lactic fat deliciousness. I'm going to be using Gruyere today, very typical to a standard fondue recipe. It melts beautifully, it's really rich, it has great flavor. Swiss Emmentaler also very frequently used. Couldn't find it at my grocery store this trip. You can definitely throw in a few little hunks of cheese you might have in your fridge, as long as it is a beautifully melting, fairly neutral tasting cheese. That's great. Just go ahead on a box grater. You can use a food processor if you have that handy. You do want freshly grated cheese because we're not looking for any stabilizers. Sometimes when you get cheese that's pre-grated, it will come with stabilizers, and that might prevent your sauce from becoming optimally creamy and delicious. If you have a kitchen scale, great, because that will mean you can be spot on. If you're an overachiever, type A kind of person, do it. Come on, it's the best part. All right, that's exactly 1 pound. That is 4 blocks. Let's go on to the 5th block, shall we? I'm gonna spare you the riveting experience of weighing your cheese and tell you that 1.5 pounds is roughly 5 blocks of Gruyere that look like this. But in case you wanna do a mélange of cheeses, then you will want to add up however many ounces you've gotten. Okay, goodbye scale, goodbye grater. Hello, first part of this recipe that is not traditional. Some recipes for fondue, traditional recipes, will say that you can take a clove of garlic and split it in half and then just rub it on the inside of your fondue pot, and that will gently scent the cheese mix with garlic flavor. I like it a little more than just gently scented. So we are gonna compromise-ish, and I am going to do creamed garlic so it will completely dissipate into the mix of cheese, and you will not taste little pieces of garlic popping out at you. And the way we're gonna do that is first by just roughly chopping the clove, like so. And then we are going to grab some coarse salt. Any salt will do, but coarse just helps move this process along because you're basically exfoliating it into oblivion. We want to smooth and cream this garlic into a lovely paste. And what this guarantees is that you will get essence of garlic throughout, wonderful punch of flavor without ever biting into a piece of garlic. Beautiful. That's all it takes. By the way, this is a phenomenal technique if you want to make a beautiful salad dressing that you want, again, the essence of garlic coming through, but no big hunks of it. Beautiful to include this way. Lots of cream sauces. One thing you'll want to think about, when garlic is cut this small, it does have a tendency to burn, so you would never want to put this right onto like a hot flaming heat. You want to mix it into things, or just put it over a lower heat so it doesn't have that risk of burning quite so readily apparent. Push that to the side, and while we have our cutting board and our knife out, we are going to finely mince some shallot. This happens to be an enormous one, so I'll probably do half of this and get it sauteing over a medium flame. Also not totally traditional, I know, but we're amping up the flavor, so I hope you'll be happy. And at the end of the day, we are making rich and velvety, cheesy fondue goodness. So if you're not happy, there's really nothing I can do for you. So to mince it, I've just sliced down vertically, and then I'm gonna slice along the length of the shallot horizontally. And that is going to make it very easy for me to create beautifully uniform little cubes. I'm just using my fingernails to kind of hold the layers together. Perfect. And I'm gonna leave the stem off just because that can get a little acrid tasting, and we want it to be perfect. Get yourself a heavy bottomed Dutch oven like so, something that is going to retain heat beautifully and cook evenly, because since we are not going to be using a official fondue setup, we want a pan that when we take it to the table and put it on a little trivet is going to hold heat for at least a few bites of fondue so that we get the maximum impact and effect. Into my pot, I'm gonna add some olive oil. No, I'm not. I'm gonna add butter instead, because why not add a little extra boost of milky goodness. Let's call this 2 tablespoons and into the pot. While this butter starts to melt, and I'm gonna drop the shallots in momentarily, you do want to add about a tablespoon of cornstarch to the cheese and toss it around. This is something that I have played around with quite a lot. I have tried arrowroot, which had a slightly like silkier kind of slick quality to it that was not totally desirable in that moment. I've also tried just like a traditional bechamel method to make a roux and then add the cheese on top of that. Divine, but that is a bechamel sauce. And for fondue specifically, we are instructed to use a tablespoon plus a tiny little bit more of cornstarch. And the reason is that cornstarch creates a very stable environment to suspend the alcohol in the cheese so that it just is very pourable and very pullable. You'll see, I mean, the strings of deliciously melted cheese are par excellence. So that's what we're doing. Okay, cornstarch. Sprinkling it over the cheese. I'm gonna do 3 teaspoons, AKA 1 tablespoon. Look at us, we're doing so many conversions, fractions, all kinds of fun things today. It's a learning show. Okay, the butter's melting. Coming in with the shallots. I mean, sizzling shallots and butter. We live for this moment. Something to keep in mind is that normally I would salt right here, but because I did put salt already with the garlic when I creamed it, I'm gonna wait and see if after I've added them all together, if more salt is needed. But right now I'm just gonna let these get a little bit translucent. I'm not looking for a ton of color. I'm just sweating off some of that liquid, sweetening them up a little bit, taking some of that rawness off, and then I will add the wine, and then I will add the garlic. One thing to note is that the beauty of tossing your cheese with the cornstarch is that it means the cornstarch is gonna be added sort of layer by layer into the sauce. So you're really going to guarantee yourself the maximum amount of success. This is a very simple recipe that goes bizarrely wrong all the time, usually because the cheese will start to clump. So giving it this little toss, again, just adding those little layers of protection, little layers of foolproofness that we like. These shallots smell so delicious. They are looking gorgeous. Now is the time to add our wine. We want a cup of wine. Deglaze all that goodness up. I will add my lovely hunk of creamed garlic now and use it to brilliantly scent our Sauvignon Blanc. Any dry white wine will do. You can use whatever you have on hand. Our wine has come up to a simmer. It smells delicious. Now we will start to add handful by handful our cheese. One other little note to tell you is that once you start adding the cheese, you really can't go away because you need to stay here and start just gently stirring in this kind of S-shaped pattern to help make sure that the cheese is not clumping, that it is emulsifying beautifully into this wine. And we do not, under any circumstances, add the next batch of cheese until the first batch of cheese has fully melted. All right, first batch is melted, next batch going in. Final little scoop of cheese going in. All in took you about 5 minutes. Consistency wise, you're looking for a little bit thicker than a normal cheese sauce because you do want this to coat and stick beautifully to all your various dipping items. But you can see the pull on here. Oh, you can see those tiny little pieces of shallot. The cheese is beautifully melted throughout. No clumping whatsoever. Wow. Could do this all day. Okay. Most importantly, you'll see it's kind of easily pulling away from the sides of my pan. So there's nothing, dry or uncooked about it, which is also important. You want to make sure the cornstarch has had a chance to completely bind into this sauce. Oh my gosh, look at this cheese pull, people. That is what we are talking about. Oh my gosh. Setting that over a low heat just to keep warm. And I did all the cheese mixing on like a medium, nothing higher than a medium. You want it to have a chance to melt low-ish and slow so that everything has its time. I want a little lemon juice. I want a little mustard, and then I am gonna add just a touch more salt. Let's start with the juice of half a lemon. Just catch any seeds that fall your way. And that just adds a bit of tanginess into this sauce because it is sophisticated and elegant. It's not just pure cheese decadence. It has a touch of something nuanced and beautiful. And the mustard is going to echo the same. Start with a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. That's like a heaping teaspoon because you can always add more. You do not want it overpowering the taste of our excellent fondue. Ooh, nice and spiced that one is. And let's go with another half teaspoon of salt to start. We can always add more there too. Give that a quick mix. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. Okay, set that to the side just briefly for just the minutes it takes to prepare what we're gonna dip in this mix. Let's get our platter together. Okay, so to assemble your display area, just grab some nice crunchy and bright colored, but it doesn't have to be, honestly, you could do potatoes. They'd be delicious too. Just grab a variety of vegetables. I am gonna do carrots today. You could definitely use fennel, that's beautiful. I'm also going to use radishes. I love that kind of peppery bite. Anything kind of crunchy and bright is the perfect foil to the rich, creamy deliciousness of this fondue. So a little pile of carrots. I just peeled them and sliced them in half. I leave the ends on because I feel like a little bit of rusticity to show that it was fresh and cut by hand and all that is all good. Some apples. I like a little pairing of the sweet with the savory, of course. Grab our gorgeous radishes. There are some monster radishes in this bunch. So I guess you could cut these into quarters if we wanted to, just to make them more bite-sized. Again, this is a communal sharing dish, so we are going to be diving in and enjoying. Again, I left the stems on. I kind of like that little hint of what it used to look like. And then I also added on some cornichons. These are really sour, bright, delicious, tiny little pickles. And some dried figs. Again, the sweet savory got to be coming through and balancing us out and keeping it romantic and fresh and still creamy and wonderful for Valentine's Day. Le baguette. Oh, this is a really beautiful fresh baguette. Lovely and crusty with plenty of give. You can also toast these up in the oven to make lovely little toast points. Just cut them on the bias, on a diagonal like so. And there you have a truly luxurious, easy to make at home fondue night for you and your loved ones on Valentine's Day. Or just you, honestly. This is my kind of dinner. I am such a snack freak. I would happily just graze through a variety of snacks and have that be dinner. No questions asked. We did. We did. This fondue, guys, smells absolutely insane. Keep it warm on the stove over a low heat until you are ready to serve. And when you are ready to serve, be it for a party of 1, a party of 2, a party of 12, take your preferred vehicle for this cheesy, delicious sauce. And before your cheese escapes from you, the perfect balance of the tanginess of that mustard that's coming through, the underlayer of the white wine, that garlic and shallot really hits. I'm telling you, it might not be traditional, but it is divine. And whatever else we put in here, because honestly, lemon juice, that's what it was. I was like, what is giving it that gorgeous tang? Oh my, there she goes. Whip it. I'm so happy right now. Covered in cheese. Just for fun, let's layer it, right? Like cheese and bread, it's delicious, we know. But let's do a little bite of radish. Let's do a little bite of pickle. Cornichon, I mean. Wishing you a delightful Valentine's Day, filled with so many delicious memories, hopefully starting with fondue.